Daniel arap Moi straddled Kenyan politics like a colossus, earning the nickname Professor of Politics for how he navigated the political scene. Moi was born on the 2nd of September in the former Rift Valley province in Sacho, Baringo, one of the 47 counties in modern-day Kenya, to his father Kimoy arap Chebi and mother Kaban. Moi was a herdsboy from humble beginnings who was raised by his elder brother Tuitok after his father passed away when Moi was 4 years old. From these humble beginnings, Daniel Toroidich arap Moi is a name that would one day resonate throughout the country, and indeed the world. Growing up, Moi's life was far from the grandeur of presidential palaces. He was raised in an environment steeped in simplicity and hard work in rural Kenya. His parents and guardians, although poor, instilled in him a strong sense of duty and resilience. This was the foundation that would later shape his life and his approach to leading a nation. Moi joined the New Africa Inland Mission, AIM, school at Kabartonjo in 1934, before it was shifted to Kapsabet. It was here that he first learned about the broader world, about history, politics, and the complexities of human societies. These early lessons sparked a curiosity and a thirst for knowledge that would drive him throughout his life. It was here that Moi became a Christian and adopted the name Daniel. After finishing his secondary education, Moi decided to continue his studies. He would stay at Paul Bomet's house, where he fell in love with his daughter Lena, and who'd end up being his wife. He enrolled at Tombak Teachers Training College, where he trained to become a teacher and went on to be a headmaster of a school in Kayo district. This was a pivotal period in his life, shaping not only his career, but also his worldview. In the classrooms, he honed his skills in communication, leadership, and problem-solving. A new chapter began for Moi in 1955, when he was elected member of the Legislative Council for Rift Valley. He was the chosen replacement of Dr. John Oli Tamino. The former representative, who had had to quit due to alcoholism, he attended the Lancaster House Conferences in the United Kingdom, which drafted the country's first post-independence constitution, and in 1961, he became Minister of Education in the pre-independence government. In 1960, he was a founder member of Kenya African Democratic Union, or KADU. This was a party that championed the rights of smaller ethnic groups, standing in opposition to the dominant Kenya African National Union, known as KANU, led by Jomo Kenyatta. Moi found in KADU a platform that resonated with his own belief in inclusivity and representation for all Kenyans. His rise within KADU was nothing short of meteoric. Moi quickly emerged as a key figure in the party's leadership, demonstrating a knack for political strategy and a talent for building alliances. His ability to navigate Kenya's complex ethnic landscape was a testament to his deep understanding of the country's diverse communities. Moi's political acumen did not go unnoticed. His peers recognized his ability to bridge divides, to bring together disparate groups, and foster a sense of unity. This was a vital skill in a country as ethnically diverse as Kenya, and it played a critical role in Moi's ascent within the ranks of KADU. But it wasn't just about political maneuvering. Moi was deeply committed to the cause of Kenyan independence, to the idea of a Kenya free from colonial rule. His work with KADU was driven by a desire to see his countrymen and women enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that independence could bring. By the end of the 1950s, Moi had firmly established himself as a significant player in Kenya's political scene. His work with KADU had not only helped to shape the party's policy and direction, but it had also laid the groundwork for his future roles in Kenyan politics. Moi was steadily carving out a place for himself in Kenya's political landscape. His journey from humble beginnings to political prominence was just beginning, and the next chapters of his life would see him play a crucial role in shaping the future of Kenya. With independence came new opportunities for Moi, now a trusted figure in the government of Prime Minister Jomo Kenyatta. He folded KADU and joined the ruling party KANU. A new chapter in Daniel arap Moi's life began to unfold as he took on the role of Minister of Home Affairs in the newly independent Kenya. This was a position that required diligence, a keen understanding of the nation's diverse population, and the ability to make tough decisions in the face of adversity. Moi rose to the occasion. proving himself as a loyal and faithful politician and minister, serving the Kenyatta administration with zeal. In his tenure as Minister of Home Affairs, Moi was instrumental in shaping key policies and maintaining law and order, earning the respect and trust of Kenyatta and his fellow cabinet members, with the majority Kikuyu cabinet who saw him as non-threatening to the pecking order. He was not only a team player, but also a visionary who recognized the importance of laying low and waiting for his opportunity by fighting for unity and stability in the young nation. The year 1967 brought with it another milestone in Moi's political career. He was appointed Vice President of Kenya by Kenyatta, who wanted a safe pair of hands, but this didn't go well with the Kikuyu elite kitchen cabinet, the Kiambu Mafia, who preferred their own to succeed the ailing president. However, many senior Kikuyu politicians, including Mwai Kibaki and Charles Njonjo, as well as Kenyatta himself, opposed such a change to the order of succession, fearing it might lead to political instability if Kenyatta died, given his advanced age and perennial illnesses. Thus, Moi's position as successor to Kenyatta was safeguarded. This position solidified his standing as the second most powerful figure in the country's government. But with great power came great responsibility. As vice president, Moi had a crucial role to play in maintaining stability and unity in the newly independent nation. Kenya, during this period, was a hotbed of political unrest and ethnic tensions. The country was grappling with the challenges of nation building, with diverse ethnic groups having different aspirations and grievances. The task ahead for Moi, as vice president, was daunting. As a member of the minority Kalenjin tribe, he had to ensure that the country remained united and stable, that the government's policies were implemented effectively, and that the voices of all communities were heard and considered. Moi's approach was one of consensus and reconciliation. He sought to build alliances between different ethnic groups with the aim of solidifying his own position. His commitment to unity and stability made him a trusted figure among Kenyans who saw in him a safe leader. His vice presidency is characterized with absolute loyalty to Kenyatta, who he served diligently despite pockets of opposition to his role as the successor to the presidency. He understood his need to be patient and allied himself to politicians like the Attorney General Charles Njonjo, who would side with him when succession time came. He would later fall out with Njonjo after he became president, and so he worked tirelessly to build his political base among the varied ethnic communities. In his role as vice president, Moi demonstrated his political acumen, his commitment to public service, and his ability to lead in challenging times. He was the third vice president of Kenya after Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Joseph Marumbi, the former being a headache to Kenyatta's administration. Moi knew the position was held at the pleasure of the president and demanded loyalty. It was during these years that he truly emerged as a national leader, respected and admired for his resilience and dedication. Moi was now just a heartbeat away from the highest office in the land. As vice president, he had proven his mettle as a leader and politician. The stage was set for the next chapter in his political journey, a chapter that would see him ascend to the highest office in the land. In the wake of President Jomo Kenyatta's sudden death, Kenya found itself on the precipice of uncertainty. The political landscape was riddled with turmoil, and the power vacuum left by Kenyatta's passing was palpable. The nation held its breath, waiting for the dust to settle and reveal the successor to Kenya's first presidency. Amidst this backdrop of instability, one figure emerged from the shadows, ready to take up the mantle of leadership. Arap Moi, a man who had steadily climbed the political ladder from being a teacher in the Rift Valley to the vice presidency, now found himself at the heart of the storm. The ruling Kenya African National Union, or KANU, saw in Moi a consensus candidate, a unifying figure capable of bridging the divides that threatened to tear the country apart. Moi's ascension to the presidency was not without its challenges. There were those who doubted his leadership abilities and questioned his readiness to lead a nation as diverse and complex as Kenya. They were more interested in having one from Kenyatta's tribe, the Kikuyu, take over the presidency, even going further to suggest constitutional changes. But in the face skepticism and opposition, cooler heads prevailed, and Moi remained steadfast, his resolve unwavering. The Kenyan army remained true to its professionalism and allowed a smooth transition. Moi was shuttled from his residence in Nakuru in the middle of the night to Nairobi to prepare for his ascension to power after Kenyatta died in the coastal city of Mombasa on August 22, 1978. On the 14th of October, 1978, Moi was sworn in as the second president of Kenya. The ceremony marked not just a transfer of power, but the dawn of a new era in the nation's history. Moi, once a humble village boy, now stood at the helm of a country on the brink of transformation. His presidency would span 24 years, a tenure marked by significant achievements and profound challenges. As he navigated Kenya through a period of rapid change and upheaval, Moi's leadership would be both lauded and criticized. But in that moment, as he took the oath of office, the weight of the nation on his shoulders, Moi was resolute. Daniel Arap Moi, once a humble village boy, now held the reins of an entire nation. As president, Moi was quick to assert his authority, leaving no doubt about who was in charge. The early years of his presidency saw Moi take decisive steps to strengthen his position. He skillfully restructured the government and the ruling Kenya African National Union Party, ensuring loyalists occupied key positions. These maneuvers allowed him to exert control over the political landscape, stifle dissent, and consolidate his rule. Moi's consolidation of power didn't stop at political reshuffling. He also embarked on a nationwide tour, a charm offensive of sorts, to connect directly with the people. This strategy painted him as a man of the people, fostering a sense of unity and loyalty among the populace. However, the flip side of Moi's power consolidation was the increasing authoritarianism that defined his rule. In 1982, in the wake of an attempted coup, the constitution was amended to make Kenya a one-party state, effectively outlawing any form of political opposition. This move fortified his rule, but it also marked a dark turn towards authoritarianism. Under Moi's regime, the state machinery was often used to suppress opposition and maintain control. Critics, political opponents, and activists were frequently subjected to detention without trial, harassment, and even torture. The media was heavily censored, and freedom of speech and assembly were severely restricted. Despite international condemnation and internal resistance, Moi managed to maintain a firm grip on power. His rule was marked by an intricate network of patronage and loyalty, sustained through a blend of charisma, fear, and the strategic use of state resources. The 1988 Q voting system, where citizens lined up behind their preferred candidate's portrait, further solidified his grip. This open voting method, criticized for its lack of secrecy, resulted in an overwhelming victory for Moi's party, further entrenching his rule. But even as he tightened his hold on power, Moi continued to project the image of a benevolent leader. He launched numerous development projects, particularly in education and infrastructure, which endeared him to many Kenyans. Moi's rule was a paradox, a blend of authoritarianism and populist appeal. Yet, the consolidation of power came at a cost. The economy stagnated, corruption was rampant, and the political space was suffocated. While Moi remained firmly in control, discontent simmered beneath the surface. Despite the challenges, Moi's hold on power was undeniable. For over 2 decades, he navigated the murky waters of Kenyan politics, outmaneuvering rivals, silencing critics, and maintaining a firm grip on the reins of power. Corruption and economic mismanagement. One of the most significant challenges facing Moi's economic policies was rampant corruption and economic mismanagement. State resources were systematically looted by government officials, cronies, and members of the ruling elite, while the majority of Kenyans struggled to make ends meet. Corruption permeated all levels of government, stifling economic growth and undermining public trust in institutions. Moi's story, filled with contrasts and paradoxes, calls for reflection and learning. His rise from humble beginnings to the pinnacle of power encapsulates the potential of human aspiration. Yet his tenure as president, marked by authoritarian rule, reminds us of the dangers of unchecked power. He used benevolence where possible and coercion. During Moi's presidency in Kenya, the use of torture as a tool of political repression was widespread and systematic. Moi's regime was notorious for its brutal treatment of political opponents, human rights activists, journalists, and members of civil society who dared to challenge the government's authority or speak out against its policies. The regime employed various tactics of torture and ill treatment to silence dissent and maintain its grip on power. The Nyayo House torture chambers, arrests, disappearance, and extrajudicial killings of the clergy, civil rights activists, and politicians became very common in his regime. Moi was constitutionally barred from running in the 2002 presidential elections. His supporters flirted with the idea of amending the constitution to allow him to run for a third term, but Moi preferred to retire, choosing Uhuru Kenyatta, the son of Kenya's first president, as his successor. The opposition parties united and Mwai Kibaki was elected president. At that point, Kibaki required the use of a wheelchair, having narrowly escaped death in a road accident on the campaign trail in Machakos. Moi handed over power in a poorly organized ceremony that had one of the largest crowds ever seen in Nairobi in attendance. The crowd was openly hostile to Moi, singing songs of contempt to his face while calling him names. Moi's story serves as a reminder of the responsibilities that come with leadership. As a leader, one's primary duty is to serve the interests of the people. Yet during his presidency, Moi often put his own interests and those of his inner circle above those of the Kenyan people. This resulted in widespread poverty, inequality, and social unrest that goes on to date. Moi is generally remembered for killing the Kenyan dream, yet for stealing the future of a generation, and endemic corruption which has plagued the country. He abandoned national unity and spread ethnic hate, pitting tribes against each other to maintain power for himself. Tribalism in Kenya, especially during election years, is a problem, and it eventually led to tribal clashes in 1992, 1997, and finally election violence in 2007. Moi was succeeded by Mwai Kibaki, who was once his vice president, now turned opponent, who tried to return Kenya to its glory days with varied success. He chose not to pursue Moi for any of the ills he had done the country, criminal and economic. He was allowed to retire to his Kabarnet and Kabarak homes, looking after his vast empire that spans the world. Moi died at the Nairobi hospital in the early morning of 4 February 2020 at 90 years old. He was buried on 12th of February in Kabarak, having laid in state at Parliament buildings for 3 days. In the end, the story of Daniel Arap Moi is not just about one man, but about a nation and its struggle for identity, stability, and progress. It's a story that calls for reflection, for learning, and for a commitment to uphold the values of democracy, justice, and human dignity. It's a story that, in its telling, compels us to strive for a world where power serves the people, where leaders are servants, and where every person, no matter their origins, can dream of a better tomorrow.